If someone is wearing a blindfold for the entirety of their life, you can't just tell them that there is a world out there. You can't just tell them that trees exist and rocks exist. While they may be able to kind of comprehend what you're talking about, they don't understand it for themselves, so they can't enact upon it. This seems simple, but then this is exactly what happens in the real world. Parents are telling children pieces of advice, imagining that telling this advice means they should immediately enact upon it. Teachers tell students advice and suggestions, expecting the students to immediately hop on the train and follow suit. This is all flawed because telling people things does not help them actually understand what these things are. And if people don't see it, like the blindfolded man taking off his blindfold, they are unable to actually enact and behave in a world knowing that these truths are real. And so this is why experience and learning firsthand is incredibly important. If we don't see the things from our own perspective, we don't learn it in any sense. If we don't feel it out, we don't learn it. So there's this sense of, how do we spread wisdom then? What is the point of knowledge coming down from, past generations? Is there a point in parents telling children bits of advice? And this is where I'll make the argument that true wisdom and passing of wisdom is not the kind of baseless, spontaneous spreading of advice and saying random quotes, but rather potentially the facilitation of experience. It is not us telling them to believe certain things to be true, but rather to put them through things that'll make them see these things. And the wise and the mature one would try to enact these experiences precisely because there's a virtue in learning these lessons. For the same reason why people give these bits of advice to their kids or to their students, is the same reason the wise will give the experience to them as well. But it's important to understand that the reality of the situation is that your words, what you believe, what you know to be true as your own wisdom, cannot just be told to somebody else and they immediately pick it up. They have to have gone through the experience and to understand it thoroughly. And while there is maybe potentially some benefit in kind of dabbling with the philosophy of these ideas, if you're so-called blinded to them, there is not really a practical way to actually understand how it's effective towards one's own life. We may be able to chant kind of the quotes and wise ideas in our head day and day, but until we actually experience something that makes these truths sort of self-evident, we are unable to actually know how it applies to our own life. And so thinking about this idea of the true way of passing wisdom can help us learn then what is the most optimal way of transferring knowledge, and how should we, in a sort of way, restructure the way we educate people. Is there problems with the current way we're educating in that there's less of a focus on pushing people towards experience and more of a focus on philosophy? And is that potentially a problem in actually educating people and spreading wisdom? Or is that the way it should be? Examples of school curriculums where most of the teaching is taught through just words, right? You're saying certain things, you're hoping the student will receive it. And in America, at least, there's a huge it's discouraged to kind of push people towards the students towards experiences and certain ideas. We want to give them this so-called idea of freedom. And the question is us giving them freedom really helping them in their education and the passing of wisdom? Or is it just us kind of making up excuses for why we can't be more hands-on in this process? And there's just things to think about. And if we were to look back and compare this to hunter-gatherers, this idea of experience being integrated with the passing of wisdom is very clear. For example, if the older people were to teach the younger people how to hunt, they wouldn't just tell them this is what you should do, but rather they put them in situations that the modern human would think would be frightening. But it's precisely these experiences that make the person challenged, and makes them develop the intuitions for these idea of wisdom. But if the current world is too docile and too cowardly to put people through experiences that can only help us learn more things, then are we truly learning the things that we have to be learning? The things that the people in the hunter-gatherer ages did to help pass down teachings would seem to us as being completely outrageous and violent and scary. But it is precisely those experiences for the hunter-gatherers that help them become into the strong, mentally fortified hunters and gatherers and people that they were. And that's just really important to think about.